Life is unpredictable, and moments of hardship often arrive unannounced, shaking the very foundation of our existence. When faced with loss, failure, illness, or despair, many instinctively seek a higher power for solace. Buddhism, with its profound insights into suffering and karma, offers a beacon of hope and clarity during these tumultuous times. However, a common question arises: if we turn to Buddhism, why do we still suffer? This inquiry stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of Buddhist teachings. The Buddha never promised an escape from suffering, rather, he illuminated the path to understanding and transcending it. Suffering is an inescapable aspect of life, shaped by our past actions and attachments. Yet, within suffering lies the opportunity for transformation, growth, and awakening. Each hardship presents us with two choices: we can resist, complain, and become overwhelmed by despair, or we can embrace adversity as a teacher. When viewed through the lens of karma and mindfulness, suffering ceases to be an enemy and instead becomes a gateway to wisdom. The shift in perspective from "why is this happening to me?" to "what lesson can I learn from this?" is a defining moment of spiritual maturity. Throughout history, countless individuals have endured unimaginable difficulties, yet emerged with newfound clarity, peace, and purpose through the practice of Buddhism. Their experiences serve as testaments to the power of spiritual resilience. In this discussion, we will explore why hardships befall even the most devout practitioners, how genuine Buddhist practice can transform suffering, and the real-life stories of those who have found inner peace amid chaos. Suffering is not a punishment, nor is it random misfortune. It is a result of past karma and a necessary condition for awakening. By understanding this, we can navigate challenges with grace and wisdom, ultimately uncovering the deeper purpose of our struggles. The true measure of spiritual progress is not the absence of difficulties, but our ability to face them with equanimity, understanding, and compassion. Part 1: Understanding the nature of hardships. Why do we face hardships despite being devoted to Buddhism? Hardships are an inevitable part of life, and even those who are devoted to Buddhism are not exempt from suffering. This is because suffering arises from past karma, our accumulated actions from previous lifetimes that ripen when the conditions are suitable. Turning to Buddhism does not erase this karma instantly. Instead, it provides us with the wisdom and resilience to navigate it. The belief that practicing Buddhism should eliminate suffering is a misunderstanding of the Dharma. The Buddha never taught that faith alone could erase hardship. Rather, he provided a path to transcend suffering through understanding, patience, and mindful practice. When hardships arise, it is not a sign that Buddhism has failed us, but an opportunity to deepen our spiritual understanding. One of the greatest realizations in Buddhism is that suffering itself is a teacher. Instead of seeing it as an obstacle, we can use it as a means to cultivate patience, compassion, and wisdom. Those who understand karma do not ask, "Why me?" but instead, "How can I transform this suffering into growth?" The role of karma, a law beyond personal desires. Karma is the law of cause and effect that governs our experiences. It is impartial and functions beyond human preferences or emotions. Just as a farmer who sows seeds must wait for the right conditions for them to sprout, our past actions manifest in our present circumstances when the time is right. Every action we take creates a karmic imprint that will ripen in the future. Negative karma from past misdeeds may still manifest even after we turn to Buddhism. Practicing the Dharma does not erase karma but helps us face it with wisdom and equanimity. For example, a person who has committed harmful actions in the past may still experience suffering even after embracing Buddhism. However, through mindfulness, ethical living, and compassionate action, they can create positive karma that will shape a better future. The understanding of karma also helps us develop compassion for others. When we see someone suffering, instead of judging them or feeling superior, we recognize that their suffering is the result of past actions, just as our own hardships stem from our past choices. This awareness encourages us to act with kindness rather than resentment. Suffering is a catalyst for spiritual growth. Many great Buddhist masters have spoken about the transformative power of suffering. Hardships have the potential to awaken us from complacency and force us to confront the deeper truths of existence. Suffering reminds us of the impermanence of life and the futility of attachment. It challenges our ego and helps us develop humility and resilience. It compels us to seek wisdom and meaning beyond material pursuits. A well-known story in Buddhist tradition illustrates this point. A woman named Kisa Gadami lost her only child and was overcome with grief. She went to the Buddha, begging him to bring her son back to life. The Buddha instructed her to collect a handful of mustard seeds from a household that had never experienced death. As she searched, she realized that suffering was universal, and this insight helped her transcend her personal grief. Like Kisa Gadami, we all encounter suffering. But if we approach it with wisdom, it can become a turning point towards spiritual awakening. Instead of resisting hardships, we should learn from them, understanding that they are not punishments but lessons that shape our spiritual path. Part 2: How to overcome hardships through Buddhist teachings. The power of sincere repentance. Repentance in Buddhism is not simply about reciting prayers mechanically. It is about deep self-reflection, understanding past mistakes, and making a heartfelt commitment to change. True repentance arises when one acknowledges the consequences of past actions and actively takes steps to correct them. Repentance begins with recognizing the harm we may have caused others and ourselves. It involves a sincere vow to avoid repeating negative actions. Through acts of kindness, generosity, and ethical living, we cultivate positive karma to counterbalance past misdeeds. Example: a businessman who once exploited workers for profit later faced financial ruin. Initially, he resented his downfall, but through Buddhist practice, he learned to take responsibility for his actions. By sincerely repenting and transforming his business into an ethical enterprise, he gradually rebuilt his life with a newfound sense of integrity and compassion. Transforming hardships by changing the mind. Buddhism teaches that suffering originates in the mind. The way we perceive hardships determines our experience of them. Through mindfulness and meditation, we can change our mental reactions to suffering, allowing us to cultivate inner peace even in difficult circumstances. Meditation helps calm the mind, reducing emotional turmoil. Mindfulness allows us to observe suffering without being overwhelmed by it. Acts of selfless service and compassion create positive karma that improves our future circumstances. Example: a woman diagnosed with a terminal illness initially despaired. However, by dedicating herself to daily meditation and compassionate service, she experienced profound inner peace. Her outlook shifted from fear to acceptance, and even her health saw unexpected improvements. She no longer saw her illness as a curse but as a teacher guiding her toward a deeper understanding of life. By understanding and applying these Buddhist teachings, we transform hardships into stepping stones towards spiritual enlightenment. Rather than viewing suffering as an enemy, we embrace it as a necessary part of our journey, leading us to wisdom, compassion, and ultimate liberation. Part 3: The 2 types of people who turn to Buddhism in hard times. Group 1: Those who seek temporary help. Turning to Buddhism only in crisis. Many individuals turn to Buddhism only during times of distress, hoping for immediate relief from suffering. They seek blessings, pray for miracles, and engage in rituals with the expectation that their hardships will disappear. However, when their problems persist or do not resolve as quickly as they hoped, they may become disillusioned and abandon the practice altogether. Superficial engagement. These individuals often engage in Buddhist practices out of desperation rather than deep faith or understanding. Expectation of quick fixes. They may believe that chanting or temple visits will instantly resolve financial troubles, health issues, or emotional pain. Lack of long-term commitment. Once the crisis passes or remains unresolved, they may drift away from Buddhism, returning only when the next hardship arises. Buddhism is not a magical solution. Buddhism does not promise immediate solutions to worldly problems. The Dharma is a path to wisdom and inner peace, not a shortcut to escaping difficulties. Those who approach Buddhism with a transactional mindset, expecting prayers to erase their suffering, misunderstand its core principles. The Buddha taught that suffering is inevitable and must be understood, not avoided. Seeking only temporary relief ignores the deeper lessons hardships offer. Real spiritual progress requires sustained effort, not momentary devotion. The cycle of conditional faith. Individuals who turn to Buddhism only in times of crisis often experience a cycle of conditional faith. Crisis strikes. They encounter hardships such as financial loss, illness, or relationship problems. Seeking help, they turn to Buddhist practices, hoping for divine intervention. Short-term engagement, they pray, chant, and visit temples, expecting immediate change. Disillusionment, if results do not appear quickly, they become frustrated or skeptical. Abandonment of practice, once the crisis ends or remains unresolved, they stop practicing. Repeat, the cycle begins again when a new hardship arises. This conditional approach prevents them from experiencing the true depth of Buddhist wisdom. Rather than developing resilience and understanding, they remain trapped in a pattern of seeking temporary relief without making lasting changes in their mindset or actions. Breaking free, a shift in perspective. To truly benefit from Buddhism, one must shift from a mindset of seeking temporary relief to one of continuous practice and personal transformation. Developing true understanding, studying Buddhist teachings helps one recognize that hardships are not punishments but opportunities for growth. Practicing beyond crisis, committing to daily mindfulness, ethical conduct, and meditation builds inner strength that sustains even in difficult times. Accepting karma's role, recognizing that suffering is often the result of past karma allows one to face hardships with patience rather than frustration. A real-life example of shallow versus deep practice. A businessman struggling with financial loss began chanting Buddhist mantras, hoping his situation would miraculously improve. When his financial troubles persisted, he abandoned Buddhism, declaring it ineffective. In contrast, another individual in a similar situation used Buddhist teachings to cultivate patience, ethical business practices, and generosity. Over time, his resilience and integrity led to gradual recovery, and he emerged not only financially stable but spiritually enriched. The difference between the two was perspective. One sought only short-term relief, while the other embraced Buddhism as a lifelong path. Final thought, moving from temporary seeking to lasting devotion. Buddhism is not a tool for escaping suffering but a guide to understanding and transcending it. Those who only turn to Buddhism in times of hardship miss out on its true power, the ability to cultivate inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. By shifting from a mindset of seeking temporary help to one of lifelong commitment, individuals can find true strength, wisdom, and liberation. Group 2, those who awaken through hardships. Hardships is a turning point for spiritual growth. Unlike those who seek temporary relief, some individuals view suffering as an opportunity for deep spiritual transformation. Rather than resisting hardships or blaming external forces, they use adversity as a catalyst for self-reflection, wisdom, and enlightenment. These individuals do not simply turn to Buddhism in times of distress, they integrate its teachings into their daily lives, allowing suffering to strengthen their faith rather than weaken it. They embrace suffering as a teacher rather than an enemy. They use hardships to deepen their understanding of impermanence and karma. Instead of seeking divine intervention, they cultivate mindfulness and wisdom. For these individuals, suffering is not a punishment but a necessary process that refines their character and strengthens their spiritual resolve. Acceptance and the power of letting go. A defining trait of those who awaken through hardships is their ability to accept reality as it is. Buddhism teaches that clinging to expectations or resisting the natural flow of life only leads to more suffering. By letting go of attachment and surrendering to the impermanent nature of existence, they find inner peace even in the midst of difficulties. They practice non-attachment, recognizing that all things, including suffering, are temporary. They cultivate patience, understanding that pain is part of the karmic cycle. They focus on self-improvement rather than blaming others or lamenting misfortune. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "How can I grow from this experience?" This shift in mindset transforms suffering from a burden into a stepping stone for spiritual advancement. Resilience through Buddhist practice. Those who awaken through hardships rely on daily Buddhist practices to navigate life's challenges. Their faith is not based on fleeting emotions but on disciplined commitment to self-cultivation. Mindfulness meditation helps them observe suffering without being consumed by it. Loving kindness, metta, practice allows them to develop compassion even for those who have wronged them. The Noble Eightfold Path serves as a guide to ethical living, ensuring that their response to suffering aligns with Buddhist principles. By consistently applying these practices, they develop a deep inner resilience that protects them from being overwhelmed by external hardships. A real-life example of awakening through suffering. A man diagnosed with a terminal illness initially responded with fear and despair. However, instead of succumbing to hopelessness, he turned to Buddhist teachings for guidance. Through meditation, he learned to detach from his fear of death and instead focused on the present moment. By practicing compassion and engaging in acts of kindness, he transformed his suffering into a path of service. His final years were not defined by sorrow but by profound peace and gratitude. His experience exemplifies the essence of true spiritual awakening, using suffering as a gateway to wisdom rather than a source of despair. The transformation of pain into wisdom. Those who awaken through hardships undergo a profound transformation. Rather than allowing suffering to break them, they use it to deepen their understanding of the Four Noble Truths. Life contains suffering, dukkha. Suffering arises from attachment and desire. Suffering can be transcended through detachment and understanding. The path to liberation lies in practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. Through this realization, suffering ceases to be a curse and instead becomes a teacher, guiding them toward enlightenment. Final thought: the true strength of those who awaken. The greatest difference between those who seek temporary help and those who awaken through hardships is perspective. While the former see suffering as an obstacle, the latter recognize it as a tool for liberation. Their unwavering faith and commitment to Buddhist practice allow them to face difficulties with grace, knowing that true peace comes not from avoiding suffering, but from understanding and transcending it. By following this path, they transform not only their own lives but also inspire those around them, proving that even in the darkest moments, enlightenment is possible. Part 4: The meaning of true devotion to Buddhism. Beyond rituals, the essence of true devotion. True devotion to Buddhism extends far beyond temple visits, chanting prayers, or engaging in rituals. While these practices can be meaningful, they are not the core of what it means to be a devoted Buddhist. Real devotion is found in the sincere application of the Buddha's teachings in daily life, living with wisdom, compassion, and moral integrity. A person who is genuinely devoted to Buddhism strives to embody its principles, not just recite them. This means cultivating a mind free from greed, hatred, and delusion, and actively practicing generosity, ethical conduct, patience, and mindfulness in all aspects of life. True devotion is measured by how one responds to challenges, interacts with others, and strives for inner transformation. Living the Dharma in everyday life. The Buddha emphasized that wisdom and virtue should be reflected in everyday actions. A devoted Buddhist practices right speech, avoids lies, harsh words, and gossip, choosing instead to speak with kindness and truthfulness. Engages in right action, lives ethically, avoiding harm to others and cultivating acts of kindness. Cultivates right mindfulness, remains present and aware, responding to life's situations with clarity and understanding. Commits to right effort, makes consistent efforts to abandon negative habits and cultivate wholesome qualities. Devotion is not merely about believing in Buddhism but about actively walking the path. The depth of one's commitment is revealed through daily choices, especially in difficult moments. The role of inner transformation. A true Buddhist does not seek external rewards or divine intervention but focuses on inner transformation. This means recognizing suffering as a teacher rather than something to be avoided. Developing patience, equanimity, and forgiveness. Letting go of attachments that lead to suffering. Seeing all beings with compassion and wisdom, rather than through the lens of self-interest. Through this inner work, devotion becomes a living force rather than an abstract concept. Instead of seeking refuge in rituals alone, a true Buddhist seeks refuge in understanding and practice. Balancing faith and wisdom. Buddhism encourages both faith, saddha, and wisdom, panna. Faith in the teachings of the Buddha provides motivation and inspiration, but without wisdom, faith can become blind belief. Likewise, wisdom without faith may lead to excessive skepticism and inaction. A truly devoted Buddhist balances both, using faith to inspire practice and wisdom to refine it. Faith gives one the courage to embark on the spiritual journey. Wisdom ensures that one does not cling blindly to concepts but instead applies them with discernment. Real-life example of true devotion. A devout Buddhist layman faced financial ruin due to an unexpected business collapse. Instead of abandoning his faith, he deepened his practice, reflecting on the impermanence of material wealth. By maintaining ethical business practices and generosity even in hardship, he slowly rebuilt his life, demonstrating that true devotion is not about seeking blessings but about maintaining integrity and wisdom through all circumstances. The Noble Eightfold Path as the measure of devotion. Rather than measuring devotion by how often one visits a temple, Buddhism provides a clear framework through the Noble Eightfold Path. A truly devoted Buddhist follows this path in daily life. Right view, seeing the world through the lens of impermanence, karma, and interconnectedness. Right intention, cultivating thoughts of kindness, compassion, and renunciation. Right speech, speaking truthfully and harmoniously. Right action, living ethically, avoiding harm to oneself and others. Right livelihood, earning a living in a way that is honest and does not exploit others. Right effort, persistently working to abandon unwholesome habits and develop wholesome qualities. Right mindfulness, maintaining awareness and presence in every action. Right concentration, cultivating meditative focus to deepen understanding and inner peace. By aligning one's life with this path, devotion becomes more than just belief, it becomes a way of being. True devotion as a lifelong practice. True devotion to Buddhism is not about external displays of piety but about cultivating an awakened mind. It is seen in how one handles suffering with wisdom rather than despair, how one treats others with compassion rather than selfishness, how one lives daily life with mindfulness rather than distraction. A devoted Buddhist does not turn to Buddhism only in times of crisis but integrates its principles into every aspect of life. This commitment to inner transformation, ethical conduct, and wisdom defines true devotion, not mere ritual, but a lived experience of the Dharma. Part 5. Applying Buddhist wisdom to family and relationships. The role of Buddhism in strengthening relationships. Buddhism teaches that the foundation of healthy relationships is built on compassion, understanding, and mindfulness. When individuals apply Buddhist principles within their families, conflicts are reduced, communication improves, and harmony is cultivated. Mindful communication, speaking with kindness and deep listening, can prevent misunderstandings and unnecessary conflicts. Patience and compassion, recognizing that every family member has their struggles, encourages tolerance and empathy. Non-attachment, understanding that expectations often lead to suffering, allows one to cultivate acceptance and inner peace. Practicing loving kindness in the family. A core teaching of Buddhism is metta, or loving kindness. This practice fosters emotional warmth, generosity, and selflessness, all of which contribute to a nurturing family environment. Regularly practicing metta meditation can help individuals send love and positive intentions to their loved ones. Small acts of kindness, such as helping with daily chores or offering words of encouragement, strengthen family bonds. Expressing gratitude fosters appreciation and respect within relationships. Overcoming conflict with Buddhist wisdom. Conflicts within families are inevitable, but Buddhist teachings offer a path to resolution that emphasizes peace and wisdom rather than ego and blame. The Four Noble Truths help recognize that suffering is inherent in life, including relationships, but understanding its root causes can lead to a resolution. Right speech from the Noble Eightfold Path encourages speaking in a way that is truthful, harmonious, and beneficial. Forgiveness and letting go, holding on to resentment only leads to more suffering. Practicing forgiveness allows for healing and growth. Cultivating harmony through daily Buddhist practice. Incorporating Buddhist teachings into daily life can create a peaceful and nurturing home environment. Establishing a routine of morning or evening meditation fosters a sense of calm and connection. Encouraging family discussions about ethical principles, such as generosity and non-harming, strengthens shared values. Teaching children mindfulness practices helps them develop emotional intelligence and resilience. A real-life example of Buddhist wisdom in families. A woman once sought the Buddha's advice on handling constant conflicts with her in-laws. The Buddha instructed her to practice metta meditation, sending love to her family members daily. Over time, her attitude changed, and the household environment softened as her newfound patience and compassion influenced those around her. By applying Buddhist principles to family life, individuals can transform relationships into sources of joy and support rather than stress and discord. True peace begins within oneself, and through mindful effort, it radiates outward to those we love. Part 6. Should we abandon Buddhism when facing hardships? The nature of faith during hard times. Many people, when encountering severe difficulties, begin to question their faith. Some may feel that their Buddhist practice has failed them, wondering why they still suffered despite their devotion. However, Buddhism does not promise an escape from suffering. Instead, it provides the tools to understand, accept, and ultimately transcend it. True faith in Buddhism is not about expecting immediate relief from pain but about developing wisdom and resilience to endure and transform suffering. The key lies in shifting one's perspective, from seeing suffering as an injustice to recognizing it as an opportunity for growth and deeper insight into the nature of existence. Why suffering should strengthen, not weaken, our faith. Hardships are an inevitable part of the human experience, and even the Buddha himself faced suffering. The Dharma teaches that suffering is a teacher, revealing the impermanence of life and the dangers of attachment. When we encounter pain and loss, we have the opportunity to cultivate patience, equanimity, and compassion. Rather than abandoning Buddhism in difficult times, those who truly grasp the teachings deepen their commitment, realizing that their suffering is not meaningless but part of a greater path toward enlightenment. The role of mindfulness in overcoming hardships. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful Buddhist practices that can help individuals endure and overcome suffering. By remaining present and fully aware of their emotions, individuals learn to observe their pain without being consumed by it. Practicing mindfulness helps individuals acknowledge suffering without resistance or denial. Observing emotions without attachment prevents one from being overwhelmed by despair. Over time, mindfulness fosters inner peace and clarity, even in the face of adversity. Karma and the acceptance of difficulties. Understanding karma is crucial in maintaining faith during hardships. Suffering does not mean that Buddhism is ineffective, it means that past karmic seeds are ripening. Instead of resisting these experiences, one should see them as a chance to resolve past karma and generate new, positive karma through right action and compassionate living. Difficult experiences may be the result of past actions, but they are also opportunities to create a better future. Accepting hardships with grace and wisdom leads to the gradual purification of negative karma. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of right effort in transforming difficulties into sources of strength. Stories of perseverance through Buddhist teachings. Many historical and contemporary figures have faced immense suffering but remained steadfast in their Buddhist faith. Example 1. A monk's unjust imprisonment. A revered Buddhist monk was falsely accused and imprisoned for years. Instead of succumbing to despair, he used his time in prison to deepen his meditation practice. Upon his release, he became a beacon of wisdom and compassion, using his experience to inspire others in their spiritual journey. Example 2. A woman's journey through loss. A woman who lost her family in a tragic accident initially questioned her faith. However, through Buddhist practice, she learned to transform her grief into a deep understanding of impermanence and compassion for others who suffered. She later dedicated her life to helping those in need, finding meaning in her loss through acts of selfless service. Choosing the Buddhist path amidst struggles. When faced with challenges, rather than abandoning Buddhism, one should lean deeper into its teachings. Seek refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Strengthen meditation and mindfulness practices to cultivate inner stability. Engage in acts of kindness and generosity to generate positive karma. Hardships are not signs that we should abandon Buddhism, rather, they are moments that test and refine our faith. By embracing suffering with wisdom, mindfulness, and compassion, we not only endure difficulties but also grow spiritually, finding liberation beyond our immediate struggles. Buddhism does not promise an easy path, but it offers a profound one that leads to lasting peace and understanding. In times of suffering, rather than turning away, we should walk the path with greater conviction, knowing that true enlightenment comes through perseverance and wisdom. The ultimate lesson from hardships. Hardships as a path to awakening. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not an obstacle but a necessary condition for enlightenment. The challenges we face are opportunities for growth, shaping us into wiser, more compassionate beings. Hardships force us to confront impermanence, detach from material illusions, and deepen our understanding of life's true essence. When we suffer, we are often compelled to seek meaning beyond superficial pleasures. In these moments, the teachings of the Buddha become more than philosophical concepts, they become practical tools for navigating the storms of life. Every hardship presents a chance to cultivate patience, equanimity, and resilience, transforming suffering into wisdom. The way we respond to difficulties determines whether they become sources of despair or wisdom. Buddhism offers practical guidance on how to use suffering as a teacher. Acceptance and letting go. Instead of resisting hardships, accepting them as part of the karmic cycle allows us to respond with clarity rather than distress. Compassion for self and others. Hardships make us more empathetic. By understanding our own suffering, we develop deeper compassion for others. Mindfulness and presence. Rather than dwelling on past regrets or future anxieties, suffering teaches us to remain present and mindful in each moment. A real-life example of strength through Buddhism. A woman who lost her entire family in a tragic accident found herself drowning in grief. Initially, she questioned her faith, feeling abandoned by the universe. However, through Buddhist practice, she embraced the teachings of impermanence and non-attachment. By dedicating herself to helping others who suffered similar losses, she transformed her pain into a path of service. Her suffering became a catalyst for profound wisdom and compassion, illustrating the Buddhist principle that within adversity lies the seed of awakening. Buddhism is a lifelong anchor. Hardships will continue to arise as long as we exist in this world. However, the true value of Buddhism is that it provides a foundation that remains unshaken amidst life's inevitable struggles. Those who remain steadfast in their practice find that Buddhism does not necessarily remove suffering but transforms their relationship with it. Over time, suffering becomes less of a burden and more of a stepping stone toward enlightenment. Faith in the path, trusting in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, offers strength and guidance through difficulties. Continuous self-improvement. Each hardship presents an opportunity to refine one's character, deepen mindfulness, and develop wisdom. The peace that comes with understanding. When suffering is viewed with wisdom, it loses its power to destabilize us. Instead, it becomes a tool for liberation. Final reflection: hardships are not punishments, but lessons. Suffering is often misinterpreted as a punishment or a sign that we are on the wrong path. However, from a Buddhist perspective, hardships are simply manifestations of karma, opportunities for learning and growth. When faced with challenges, rather than asking, "Why me?" a Buddhist asks, "What can I learn from this?" By embracing hardships as essential elements of spiritual development, we move beyond the endless cycle of resistance and frustration. Instead, we find clarity, acceptance, and a deeper sense of peace. Ultimately, true liberation does not come from avoiding suffering but from understanding it, accepting it, and using it as fuel for spiritual awakening. Thus, the ultimate lesson from hardships is this: they are not to be feared or avoided, but embraced with wisdom and an open heart. Through Buddhism, we learn that suffering is not the end of our journey, it is the very path that leads to true freedom.